Hello, AP World History students, and welcome to part 2 of Chapter 2 screencast, this time featuring the early Hebrews and Phoenicians, who were also part of early ancient Mesopotamian culture. The model that you see here, and I'm sorry that my face partially obstructs the view, I can't seem to find a way to um, change it, is actually a model of the Temple of Solomon. But the Hebrews have their origins with Abraham, who was he migrated to northern Mesopotamia and the land that we call Palestine in approximately 1850 BCE. Now, Abraham is considered to be the father of the world's three major monotheistic religions, Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. Judaism being the first, Christianity second, and then Islam. Some of the early Hebrews did migrate to Egypt in the 1700s BCE, and then under Moses, many of them went back to Palestine from Egypt. Now, for those of you from a Jewish or Christian or Islamic tradition, the story of Moses under the rule of Pharaoh is highlighted in scriptures. But it is believed that around 13 BCE is when the Hebrews left Egypt, and then they reestablished their kingdom in Palestine, and the kingdom of Israel was created under Saul, who was the first king of the Hebrews. Later kings were David and Solomon, and these are well documented in many scriptures. Now, Moses is a very important figure in Judaism and Christianity, and as well as Islam. And Moses is believed to be the person that really emphasized the idea that God was a single or is a single entity. There is evidence that the early Hebrew people did believe in several gods or had a form of polytheism, and that it was Moses that initiated the era of monotheism. I do acknowledge that there is some debate about that, whether the Hebrew people were always monotheistic or not. But for this one, we are going to go with what our text says, which is that Moses was the person who initiated the concept of monotheism. The picture here is a replication of the Ten Commandments, and these were given to Moses on Mount Sinai by, it is believed, by God. Many people are familiar with the Ten Commandments in common culture, even such as honor thy mother and father, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not commit adultery, etc. The scriptures of the Hebrew people were the Torah, and then there were other scriptures that have been developed over the years in addition to the Torah. Now, in the Hebrew faith, God is personal and also gave rewards and punishments for following or breaking laws. This is in contrast to very impersonal polytheistic gods that we see in much of Mesopotamian culture prior to this time. Now, Israel was engaged in civil war. The northern tribes of Israel and the southern tribes of Judah originated from the 12 tribes that arrived in Palestine after the migration to Palestine. But Israel was conquered by the Assyrians in 722 BCE. And as you might recall from our lecture, the Assyrians were very skilled military. They had very strong iron weapons. And the exiles from Israel, those who left Israel because of the Assyrian conquest, are called the 10 lost tribes. The Babylonians then conquered the Assyrians who were in Palestine in 586 BCE. And more Judean exiles, which is another name for the Hebrews, leave for over 100 years. Now, eventually, the Hebrews would be allowed to return to Palestine. But what's really, really important about this last bullet point here, and I want you to circle that word diaspora, as they were spread throughout Mesopotamia because of these conquests, they retained their cultural identity, their religion, And this has happened many, many times over the years to the Hebrew or the Jewish people, that they have been um, displaced from a homeland, but in, but even while they're away, they retain their cultural identity. So the diaspora of the Jewish people would end up spreading through much of the Middle East up into Europe over the coming centuries. The temple was rebuilt in 515 BCE, and there are scriptural references to this. It was a very significant time for the Jewish people to be able to rebuild their temple. Of course, it would be destroyed again later on, and as of this point in time, it is still just the Western Wall that remains. Now, the Phoenicians are another very important people group, and as you can see on this map, they were city-states along the eastern Mediterranean coast. They came into existence after 3000 BCE. An important thing to remember about the Phoenicians is they were not land rich. They didn't have rich arable, farmable land. So they became very skilled in shipbuilding and maritime trade. Now, later on in the 1400s, the Portuguese would take on that role because they, like the Phoenicians, were land poor but sea rich, and so they would develop also a very large shipbuilding network. So at this point in time, the Phoenicians are the skilled shipbuilders. They control the trade routes, and they become very prosperous because of this. The Phoenician alphabet was like cuneiform, but it was simpler, and their alphabet was important for maintaining records and keeping the books for their trade network, their extensive trade network. And this would spread literacy around the Mediterranean region. And as you can see on that map, their influence spread quite a distance and will eventually reach Europe, Italy, Greece, etc. Now, the Indo-European migrations are the last thing from this chapter. These were really significant in their extent of their influence. The Aryans are the Indo-Europeans, and the term Aryan, you maybe heard Hitler used that term a lot, but really it's just a word that means lords, and it is the root of the term Iran, which is the name of a country, as you know. We see linguistic similarities of migrants through many areas of the world that the Indo-Europeans migrated. So if you take a look at the map, the languages of the Europeans, of Arabic nations, etc., all have linguistic similarities. They originated in modern-day Ukraine, Russia area, and again, as you can see from this map, they originated here and spread into continental Europe. They spread down into Arabia. Later on, we'll see how they crossed the Hindu Kush mountain pass, and they ended up displacing some of the indigenous people of northern India and pushing them farther south as they took over this part of India. What is most important to remember about the Indo-European migrations is they brought along their horses and the domestication of horses. Horses will end up playing a gigantic role in the history of the world. They, of course, were the primary means of transport. People became very skilled soldiers on horses. So in addition to bringing their language with them, they brought their horses, and they brought other technologies as well. So the Indo-European migrations was a long, long migration of people from the Ukraine, Russian area into various parts of the world. So thank you for your attention, and please do take note of these important points, and I'll see you the next time. Thanks.